Welcome to the 100th episode. You're listening to the Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen.
Hello, my dear, sweet Motherhood Experience community. I am Jessica Mefford. I did an episode last May, and I just want to say that the Motherhood Experience is like my weekly coffee date with other moms, where I'm just reassured that the struggles I'm having are normal and the feelings that I'm having are normal. And I just appreciate everybody's willingness to be transparent whenever recording these episodes. I think that some of my favorite just start with, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I don't have anything to share. And I have a tendency to get so much from those. So thank you to everybody who has done an episode and everybody who listens. And if you haven't done an episode yet, get in touch with Val today, please, because I love so much to hear these stories of empowerment or just day-to-day mothering. So keep on with the good stuff, guys, and I can't wait to hear from the rest of you.
Welcome to the 100th episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. Can you believe we're here? I kind of can't. But I'm so glad that you're here with me. Here is what I want to cover today in this 100th. How do you say 100th? Because every time I say it right now, I've never second guessed this before, but now that I'm recording and I've said it 20 times, I'm starting to think or wonder if I'm saying it incorrectly. Either way, I have published as of today, 100 episodes of this podcast, 100 weeks of recording, editing, publishing, promoting. And here we are. This is so exciting. So many new things as we launch season 5, as we kick it off here with episode 100. You may or may not have noticed there's a little updated logo. The logo is different. And in my opinion, it's better. It's just a better depiction of what this is, what this podcast is. Moms having a coffee table style conversation. Updated, refreshed website, updated, refreshed social shares and posts. And if you're watching on the video, whether you're on Spotify or YouTube, you saw an updated intro. Was that not so cool? Please tell me it was cool. I spent a lot of time working on that. Please tell me it was cool and that is the favorite thing you've seen all day. That would fill my sails with so much air. But really, the fact that we're here, 100 episodes in, I can't fathom. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it's been a journey. It's been a journey to get here. I have some comments to read, some things to share from previous guests who, by the way, I know that my listening audience is the best. You listeners are so personally engaged with me. It's I'm learning so much about podcasting as I do this. And the people who follow me on Instagram are so different from the people who follow me on Facebook, who are so different from the people who follow me on YouTube, who are so different from the people who follow me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, blah, blah, blah. But all of you have one thing in common, and that is that you enjoy this podcast. And I love that. I love that you love this podcast. I'm going to try not to be cheesy. I'm going to try not to be emotional. No promises. If episode 100 is your first episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast, where have you been? But also, I'm glad you're here. This is such a crazy milestone. I have had the privilege and the opportunity to sit down and talk with almost 100 moms. There have been some episodes I've done solo. There was an episode with my husband. There was an episode with my daughter. But the guests that I have had have been other mothers just sharing their story, sharing how motherhood has changed their life, sharing what they thought it would be versus the reality of what it is today. And what a special, unique, individual journey it has been for each of them. This podcast has not shied away from the hard stories. We have not shied away from the sad stories. We have not shied away from the celebratory stories. Every mom has a story, and every story, every episode of this podcast has been so different. One of my favorite comments, favorite pieces of feedback, and I've received it multiple times from multiple people, is whoever the guest is and whatever their story is, whether or not that story or that experience is shared, whether a listener has also gone through the same thing or whether they haven't, they always find something in every episode that they can relate to, that resonates with them, that speaks directly to them. And how cool is that? How cool is that? We have this sea of episodes and guests, and every single time there's something that relates directly to you, the listener. I think that is so amazing to me, while also not being surprising at all. Do you know what I'm saying? Because as a mom, you are going to connect with and resonate with other moms, regardless of if they do the same things you do, if their story is similar to yours. You're going to find pieces to connect to. And it's just my favorite thing. I've had the privilege and the honor of sitting down with these women, some of whom I've known personally before we hit record, some of them whom I am talking to for the first time as soon as I hit that record button. And it seems like they've all been pretty good conversationalists. They've all been, even if they were hesitant at first, and I'm not going to call out specific guests, but you were hesitant to come on the podcast. And then not only did we have such a good time connecting and talking with one another, but you discovered you do have a story, right? And it is worth sharing. And I am so honored to have and host this platform where you and moms like you are able to do that. 100 episodes.
So I have to say that I am very thankful for Val starting up the Motherhood Experience podcast. And every episode that I listen to, I always learn something, but I think the biggest lesson that I learned, like overall, listening to all of them, as time goes by, is just a reminder that no matter the situation that you're in, somebody else out there is struggling with the same things you are. And because it can feel so lonely sometimes. Sometimes it can feel like you're the only one that is struggling with the things that you're struggling with. And it's not true. I mean, that goes for all of us as humans, not just as moms, but all of us. But I just want to encourage you, don't be afraid if it is overwhelming, if you do feel like it's too much, maybe it is. It's okay to not be in everything. It's okay to pull back and say, I am not going to send my kids into all the different things. It's okay to say we get to pick one thing during this season, and that's all we're going to do. It's okay to say we're not going to do anything during this particular season. And I think that's something that I've really learned too, is it's seasons. Just because we do it this way right now doesn't mean we have to do it this way forever. And I think I've learned that a lot by listening to the podcast, but the podcast has definitely been a huge encouragement. And if you're not already listening, I encourage you to go back and listen to all the other episodes if you haven't already. Listen to what I like to call your mom gut, because you know your kids best, you know your family best, you know what's right for them. It doesn't matter what anybody else out there is doing. Your life doesn't have to look the same as theirs.
I would like to get into, I was interviewed recently, and one of the questions was like, how did you acquire all of the podcasting equipment? How did you know what to get? How did you know what you were doing? Was it hard to get started? When I tell you, whether you realize it or not, everything in life happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that. Way back in 2014, when I had just had little man, he was a baby, and I became a virtual assistant, working from home, assisting other clients. I landed a client in 2015, and one of my primary responsibilities was to assist this client with their podcast. I learned about editing, producing, uploading, hosting, creating show notes, creating social media shares. I learned about the recording process, all of it. I learned about equipment in 2015. From there, I went on to produce my own online course for how to become a virtual assistant, for which I wanted a high quality microphone so I could record the audio for my sessions. And I was also like intermittently co-hosting a podcast for a client as well. So I wanted a good microphone. Back in like 2017, I acquired this very microphone that I'm recording on right now. All of that experience, if you would have asked me back then, are you going to host your own podcast one day? My answer would have been probably not. Because who wants to listen to Val all the time? I get tired of my own voice. Why would anyone else listen to it? Like, my kids certainly aren't listening to it. A little mom joke for you there. Hey. So, absolutely not would have been my answer. However, the experience I had with my client in assisting with their podcast, the experience I had in recording my own online course for how to become a virtual assistant, all led to me having everything I needed at my fingertips to produce this podcast today. I had no idea, and I never would have guessed that those things I was doing to earn a living, just to get by with my job, would have led me to this point in producing my own podcast today. In that same vein, I remember being asked if I would help plan or organize a women's ministry event. I think this was back in maybe 2012, 2011, somewhere in there. I said, sure, I'll help. I'll show up to the meeting. And I show up to this meeting, and all these women are around the table, and the director of women's ministry is saying, okay, I need someone to take charge of the food. Who's going to take charge of the food? And whoever volunteered for it, volunteered right away. Oh, I can do that. And then they're talking about their ideas and stuff for the food. And it was just like, you could tell this person was made for that. Okay. Like, this person enjoyed organizing food. They enjoyed preparing it. They enjoyed being hospitable in that sense. I need someone to be in charge of decorations. Someone else volunteered right away. You could tell that creativity and aesthetics was really their lane. And let me tell you, the food at this event was phenomenal. The decorations at the event were perfect. Anyway, they're going around for all of these needs for this event. And I'll just be upfront with you and say, how should I say this? Let's just say acts of service is not Val's love language. All right? Will I step in and take care of something and do something that needs to be done? Yes. Will I enjoy it? Almost never. Being transparent with you. All right? Acts of service, not my love language. Going around the table, talking about all of these needs for this women's event. And I'm sitting there the entire time wondering, why am I here? I don't want to do any of this. These people who are volunteering for this are far better at these things than I am. Why am I at this table? At the very end of the meeting, the women's ministry director says, and also I would like for someone else other than me to MC this event. I do not want to MC this event. Let me tell you, my hand shot up so fast. And I knew in that moment, oh, this is why I'm at this table. Oh, this is why I'm here. She wants someone to MC this event. I very much want to MC this event. And so I did. So that was my role. Nobody else in that room, at least I can't say that for sure, but I think everyone else had volunteered for a different area. And so, like, emceeing was what was left. And it was very much the thing I wanted to do. So I emceed that first women's event. That was my first real experience in public speaking, and I loved every second of it. I loved it. I remember not walking home. I didn't walk home, I drove. I remember walking in the front door of our house after the event, and Brent was sitting there, who knows, probably reading or playing Brick Breaker on his Blackberry. Who knows? And he goes, "How did it go?" And I just remember I kind of put my hand up and I just went, "Nailed it." And I felt so good. My tank was so full. Not because I was arrogant in thinking, like, "Oh, no one could have done it better than me. I rocked it." Not because of that, but because it just filled my tank. It lit something within me, and I was so excited to serve in that way. What did that lead to? That led to me emceeing more events. That led to me speaking at a couple of events. That led to me speaking and teaching after Harlan died, even more specifically about bereavement at that time. But I had the experience. All of these things happened to give me the experience so I could step into a role and fulfill a need later on. I would have had no idea sitting at that table volunteering so quickly, so quickly to MC an event would lead to all of these things happening later on. But being comfortable speaking with a microphone in front of other people, being familiar with producing a podcast, editing, recording, all of the things, having no qualms about having the equipment on hand because I needed it for my job, who would have known or anticipated or expected that all of these things would come together and I would be sitting here today recording my 100th episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast.
Happy 100th episode, my Hanny. This is Rachel Kemp. I am so honored you asked me to record a video for your 100th episode. The memories of that episode are something that I will carry with me, reconnecting with you and reliving one of the best friendships of my life. Life has changed a lot for me since I recorded that episode with you, but the one thing that doesn't change is the fact that us moms need each other to lean on and garner support from. And I think that's what your podcast does for people. You can listen to everyone's stories and everyone's journeys. You can learn something. You can laugh with them. You can cry with them. I've had all those emotions while watching your and listening to your podcast in on the way to work and on the way from work. And so thank you for all the stories that you share. And thank you to all the moms who share those stories and share your life and share your journey. It means so much to lots of people. Thanks so much. Happy 100th.
I'm not sure if I have ever shared. Oh no, I know we did. I know Brent and I talked about how the podcast name came to be. And he incorrectly remembered that he named the podcast, which is not accurate at all. He was trying to come up with names and he was like saying titles. I'll tell you, I really wanted to be the Midwest mom. I don't know why. I don't know why I wanted to be that. It just really, I was like, oh, the Midwest mom. There are so many Midwest mom things, Midwest women things in general. And so there was like 0 domain, 0 social media handles available for that. And I remember Brent was suggesting things to me and I was just getting annoyed. First of all, I was sick. I did not feel well. And he's throwing out these names that are terrible. And I remember being so annoyed and thinking, why is he trying to come up with a name for a podcast about motherhood? He has 0 experience. And then I kind of lit up and I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. The Motherhood Experience, which is what every episode has been about and is the most fitting title for this podcast, in my humble opinion. So everything else may be updated. The logo, the website, the social media shares, the intro to the podcast, but the title is staying the same for season 5 because it encapsulates everything this podcast is, the motherhood experience. And we've had phenomenal guests on this show. I could go through, list every single one, share something about them, but I'm not going to do that. What I am so touched to be able to do is to share with you straight from their own words, their own experience, a message for you. I reached out to previous guests and I was like, hey, I'm about to record episode 100. And I really want you to be a part of it because you've been a part of this podcast since your episode, some of you since before your episode when you just were faithful in listening to it. What can I share from you on episode 100? And I received some of the sweetest comments and messages from people. So let's get to those right now. First, I want to read just a little note from Heather Wilkins, whose episode aired almost exactly 1 year ago in episode 48. Heather says, I love TME. I also loved being a guest on your show. It was equal parts terrifying and fun. I hate being on video. Thank you for having me as a guest, and thank you for all you do for the community of moms. Well, Heather, thank you so much. And speaking of Heather's, Heather Madsen, episode 26, back from January of 2024. Heather and I sat down and she shared about her motherhood journey. She lost her daughter. She and I met at support group for bereaved parents. And you know how some people just work their way into your heart? It was almost immediate with Heather when she came to group. She had this to say, and it's so touching, and I feel like she inflated me a lot in this, but I'm so appreciative. What a treat to be affirmed and encouraged like this. Here's what Heather Madsen had to say. Where do I even start? Knowing Val has truly been a blessing in my life. I'm so happy to see Val thriving with this podcast while connecting with old friends, new friends, and everyone in between. My own episode of the podcast was kind of a, quote, doom and gloom, end quote, one. But even then, talking with Val brought laughter and smiles, which is what it is all about. For those who have been following the podcast, I hope you found someone to connect with along the way because I certainly have. As a bereaved mother without other children, finding a sense of community hasn't always been easy. But through the TME podcast guests and listeners, I found connection and common ground. And how could you not with a host like Val Kleppen? I'm constantly in awe of the resilience and strength of moms in general, but specifically of the moms featured. Each episode shines a light on how much moms kick butt every single day. To those who may not have been a guest on the podcast, but are faithful listeners, I hope you have felt the love, support, and the judgment-free atmosphere that Val has so beautifully created. TME has made me laugh, cry, learn, and take a walk in another mom's shoes, each experience deeply meaningful. Val, congratulations on 100 episodes. To you and all the incredible guests and listeners, what an amazing milestone. It was an immense honor to have been a guest and continues to be joy to tune in. Thank you, Val. You are amazing. I don't know about that, Heather, but I am so honored that you shared that. Thank you so very much. My neighbor, Olivia Shockley, was on the podcast and she sent me this super sweet text. I keep meaning to create a video, but this will have to do. I had so much fun recording my episode with Val. Oh, maybe I wasn't supposed to read the whole thing. Welcome to the podcast. This is how I do things. I had so much fun recording my episode with Val. I was so nervous at first, but it was like we were just having a mom-to-mom coffee date and catching up on life. I listened to each episode religiously, and every single one is encouraging in its own way. Even if that mom and I have nothing in common, there is always a nugget of truth or a moment that makes me laugh out loud as I hear their story. I am so grateful for the Motherhood Experience podcast and can't wait to hear what else she has on the docket for the coming months And in parentheses, she says, and years. Olivia, thank you so much for that. Yes, I hope for years to come. Kelly Furch, who I met many years ago, was a guest on the podcast talking about how we met. She says, Dearest Val, we met under not the happiest of moments. With both of us losing a daughter so close to one another, we found a kinship of strength. My heart always feels warm when I hear your voice, and I remember how blessed I am to have you as a part of my life. All of my family continues to be thankful for you coming into our lives. Though we had to meet in heartbreaking situations, I am thankful God gave us you. Congratulations on 100 episodes. Your way of connecting people and stories is a gift from God. I don't know how your heart fits in your chest because it is huge. I can't wait to celebrate your 200th episode with you. With much love, Kelly Furch. Kelly, thank you so much for those words. And also, miracle of miracles. I am not breaking down crying reading these. Kaylin Conway, so fun. I remember there was like a little bit of a delay when she said something so funny in her podcast episode, but then there was like a 3-second delay. And so I started laughing later when she had kind of started to move on to something else. Kaylin, you were so much fun. And I so appreciated TracyFixin.com making the introduction to us. So glad to have you as a guest. And thank you for this sweet note of yours I'm about to read. 100th episode. What a milestone. Something to be proud of. I'd never been on a podcast prior to yours. I wasn't sure what to expect. Should I prepare? What's she going to ask? What if I say something dumb? You just jumped in with a gentle conversation and we took off like old friends. I forgot we were even recording. You have a knack for this, and people are listening. Thanks for inspiring and introducing me to new people, perspectives, and stories. Love listening and learning. Cheers to 100 and many, many more. Cheers indeed. I think it was back on episode 8. I could look it up for sure, but why be accurate? When Christine Lieb was my guest, Christine and I had never met or spoken other than some like social commenting back and forth and email replies. We actually met during a blogging challenge. I think it was a 30-day blogging challenge, and we were in some Facebook group together or something. And she came on the podcast. Her episode was so rich, and I still hear from listeners about how her episode impacted them. And she just sent me an update and said, by the way, this is where I am now. I got out of the nonprofit world so I can have more time with my kids and spend more of my energy doing what I love, coaching and encouraging parents, especially moms. Thanks for all you do to support moms on their journey. Well, Christine, same to you. Thank you for coaching and encouraging moms. And like I said, her episode had a real impact on the listeners. And I think one of my friends said to me that Christine's episode set her free. It set her free. And isn't that kind of what it's all about? We're all carrying this motherhood torch. We're learning as we go. We're going along through the journey and we're struggling with things. Sometimes it's more of a private struggle than it needs to be. Sometimes it's more of a public struggle than we want it to be. But we're all struggling with things. And then when we just get stuck in whether it's a habit or a mindset or not coming up with a creative solution that we want to solve this issue we're facing, and someone says something and we're like, oh, the Red Sea parts for us, and we're able to cross over on dry land into this freedom, into this new experience, and we're not held to what we couldn't manage or overcome before. All it took was someone else saying it, right? How many times have you been talking to a friend or maybe listening to this podcast? And I know it happens. I know moms listen to this podcast and because I get the messages, I get the text messages. When she said, insert what guest said here, that changed my life. That set me free. That, encouraged me so much. All it takes sometimes is for someone else to be able to just verbalize what we're experiencing, and then we're able to sort through it. It's incredible. Another thing that I love about this podcast is that it is such a communal core feel. When I ask every episode for a 5-star review, and we are a 5-star rated podcast, thanks to you. What tickles me to death and what I find so sweet and endearing is when I get private, personal text messages. You're not commenting on social media. Sometimes you're commenting on the episode of Spotify, but usually you're sending me a text. And the fact that you're taking the time to provide me feedback personally and so succinctly about specific episodes, I love it. I hope you never stop doing that. Why? Because even though acts of service is not my love language, I'm pretty sure words of affirmation is. If it's not the number one, it's the number two. I struggle so much, so often with wondering, is what I'm doing fulfilling any purpose whatsoever? Does this matter? Do people care that I'm hosting this podcast? Do people care that I'm interviewing these other moms? Is this making a difference? I struggle with that a lot, often, maybe more often than you realize or that I would care to admit. But then I get that text message, or I see that there's a comment on Spotify, or I see that YouTube has another subscriber. And I realize, at least for right now, for today, it does matter. It does carry purpose. It is impacting the very lives of the people that it's created for, you. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
First off, Val, I just wanted to say congratulations on 100 episodes. What a huge milestone to accomplish. So well done, friend. And a sincere thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do, not just for me, but for so many other women and moms out there who feel heard, who feel seen, and that's all because of your obedience to step out and say, yes, I'm going to start the Motherhood Experience podcast. So what a huge success, not just in the ways of man, but the Lord is celebrating along with you, friend. So thank you and congratulations. Now, my favorite part of our conversation when you had me on the show, I actually think happened before we even recorded. I had been fighting a terrible migraine. I had been praying over having the conversation with you, and I just felt the enemy not wanting me to have that conversation. And I think you felt it too, and we both talked about it, and yet we talked through it, we prayed together over it, and our conversation was amazing. I can't honestly even remember some of the things we talked about because that's when you know the Holy Spirit's there. And just the connection that God's allowed us to have since then, and just connecting us the way He did just blows my mind every time. But yet, nothing will be wasted with what you are doing, friends. So keep going, and thank you for your faithfulness.
When I started this podcast, I think I had a very specific, and maybe even I'll use the word rigid, vision for what I thought it was going to be. And those first few episodes, I planned all of these questions specifically that I asked the moms. I was so nervous conversing with them, even though they were my friends, my very good friends. The first few episodes, I was so nervous. And I think it wasn't nerves so much as it was perfectionism. And I really wanted this podcast to be a specific way. And I couldn't even tell you now what I wanted. I don't think I could verbalize what I expected or anticipated or planned for it to be. But I learned that was not the best way for me to operate as a podcast host. And I don't plan questions that I'm going to ask. Sure, we follow a certain format where we start with ages and stages, and then I kind of ask about motherhood before. I was going to say BM, before motherhood, but that's not. We're not doing that. I would ask a question about their views on motherhood, maybe before they became a mom, maybe what their plan was, if they always wanted to be a mom, something like that. And from that point on, the conversation is very organic, it's very authentic, and it just flows based on the conversation. So they answer a certain way, and then I'll ask questions, kind of drawing out for them to expand on something, or they'll make a comment that makes me think of something. Whereas before, when I had questions planned out, like they would be talking about one thing and I would think, okay, how am I going to segue this to this next question I have? Like it's two separate things. And that didn't work. It was very unnatural for me. It did not feel genuine or authentic, and certainly didn't feel like a conversation. It felt like more of a scripted interview, and that I don't like that. That did not resonate with me. It wasn't natural for me. So instead of preparing rigidly for every episode, I quickly learned, like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going to talk to them, hear what they say, pick up on the story they have to share, and we'll piece it together from there. Becky Thompson, author Becky Thompson, was, I think April or May was her episode. We had such a fun conversation in her episode, and I hit stop on recording and I was like, well, thank you so much. I'm so glad we could make this work. And she said, can I just say, you are one of the best podcast hosts I've ever talked to. Let me tell you, when she said that, first of all, I was like, why am I not still recording? Oh, I would have loved that comment on the record. But also, what a gift and what a joy to be able to hear that from someone who is probably more experienced at being a podcast guest than I am at being a podcast host. Certainly, she's more experienced in public speaking. For her to say that meant so much. And it came at one of those times where maybe I was feeling a little insecure or doubting, is this something I'm supposed to continue? Lord, I have this with an open hand. You gave it to me. This is your podcast. You can take it back whenever we're done. If we're done here, I just need to know. And things started happening. Guests started kind of coming out of nowhere, being introduced to me, and having a guest of her experience in the speaking and podcasting world to pay me such a high compliment was a big deal. And it made me think, maybe I am supposed to keep doing this. And praise God if I am. Again, I have it with an open hand. Episode 100 won't be the last, because I know that I have more episodes to publish after this. But even if episode 110 is the last one, what a run. What a run this has been. And also, I hope I pass the baton. I hope whenever the Motherhood Experience podcast ends, and I'm not saying anything about it ending soon or anything like that. I have no plans. Those plans could change, but I have none. But also, realistically, this podcast is going to come to a close at some point. It will sunset, and I will ride off on the podcast horse into that sunset. When it does come to a close, I hope that I can pass the baton to someone else who will be even more gifted, who will be even more intuitive, who will be even more entertaining, to encourage moms in the community that this podcast has built. That's what I want. I want to raise up some moms that I can pass the baton to and say, it's your turn. It's your turn to encourage other moms. It's your turn to speak into their lives. It's your turn to help them share their story. And why does that matter? I'll tell you why. My own motherhood story is one that no mother wants, but it is my story. It is my reality. And I wanted desperately to share it. But because my story is so hard and so heavy, not everyone wanted to hear it. They didn't have the capacity to sit in my sorrow with me when I shared my story. I didn't understand it then. I get it now. But to have this honor and privilege to host this podcast and to be completely comfortable with moms sharing their motherhood story, whether it's hilarious, whether it's heavy, whether it's a season of mundane or a season of massive explosive growth for their personal careers or pursuing their passions or dreams, to be able to sit here and be comfortable and just guiding them through a conversation, sharing about their story. I can't tell you the thrill this has been for me. And I also would not have been able to do it, not for one episode, certainly not for 100 episodes, without you, the listener. You are a rock star. I'm not trying to butter you up. I'm saying if it weren't for you listening to this right now, this podcast would not exist. You have tuned in weekly or intermittently. As a podcast host, I am not an avid podcast listener myself, but I know some of you are so loyal and you have heard every single episode. And you started at a certain point and then you went back to the beginning and you got all caught up. And you are loyal and committed. And this podcast could not do it without you. You have told your friends about the Motherhood Experience podcast. You have recommended that your friends be guests on the Motherhood Experience podcast. You've shared episodes. You've shared encouragement. This is a collaborative success story because truthfully, 100 episodes is a big deal to me. Hitting that 3 number mark is a big deal to me, but none of it would happen if you weren't here right now. Thank you. Thank you. Do you know what else would not have happened without you listening to the podcast? I shared earlier in this episode how I emceed and that opened up speaking doors. This and that those paved the way for me hosting this podcast. This podcast has opened speaking opportunity doors. I love public speaking. I know some people would rather die than speak in front of others. And that I don't understand. I do not understand that. But I love speaking so much. And this podcast has opened the door for so many opportunities for me to go and speak to groups of moms, to groups of women. And I wouldn't have the street cred to do that if it weren't for guests continually showing up, being willing to share their story. And if it weren't for you, the listener, continually showing up to consume these episodes. This is a collaborative, successful endeavor. It's not because of Val Kleppen. It's not because of a particular guest. It's not because of a particular listener or a handful of listeners. This is all of us. And that's what makes it so special. This is your podcast. And so I'll share that to say also, if you have guest suggestions, if you have topic considerations you want to send my way, by all means, please do. Also in that interview where I was interviewed, they asked, how do you vet guests or come up with topics? Like, is there ever just, you've got nothing? And maybe there have been times of that, but truthfully, I consider you all my friends. I have made friends because of the guest interviews I've done, because of the engagement that you listeners have. I feel like you're all my friends. And my answer to this interviewer was, do you ever run out of things to talk with your friends about? No, you don't. You can sit and have fun conversations with them. You can sit and have serious conversations with them. You can love them through hard times. And you can laugh them through fun, run-of-the-mill seasons in their life. Do you ever run out of things to talk with your friends about? Now, caveat, as an introvert, I do have a friend who she knows she tunes into my introvertedness so well. And she has been witness to the fact that, like, when I reach my limit, when I reach my people limit, there is like a switch, and I'm moving I'm gesturing as a switch at my face or at my eyes, because when that switch flips, my whole face changes and I'm done. I'm done. So I guess in a way, this podcast is such a blessing to me because I have so many of you as my friends. But that switch doesn't turn off because there's not hundreds of us in a room together for, every single week. There's not hundreds of us in a room together. But you're still you're still interacting with me. You're still communicating with me. I'm still sending weekly emails, which, by the way, if you want in on those, go to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Weekly, I'm staying in touch with you, sharing all of the latest. That has been such a treat for me, especially when I get those replies. When I get those replies from y'all, it warms my eyes light up. My face lights up when I'm like, Megan replied to my email again. I love it so much. Thank you for doing that. themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. And thank you for being on this journey with me. I hope this wasn't too lengthy. I appreciate all of the guests who submitted their feedback and encouragement. And I know there were some who wanted to say some things, wanted to share some things, but they were just like, this isn't what I do, Val. You know that, you know I support you, you know I encourage you, but I don't do this thing. And I get that too. I would have loved to have featured something from you, but also I get it. So friends, here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep producing content. We're going to keep having conversations with other moms. We're going to keep the motherhood experience journey moving forward. This is a podcast with moms, for moms, and by moms. And it's possible because of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For 100 episodes, here's to at least 100 more. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Facebook or Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.